Scorpio, Patience, leading to understanding. Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's virtue practice. Patience is often seen as a kind of tolerance or even a resignation in the face of something that you can't do something about, or that you have to wait before you can do something about it. And that kind of patience has a relevance, but when we are looking at this work, when we're really seeing it as a virtue, the virtues connect us with the good, with the streaming of the spiritual world. They connect us with a divine attribute, and we tend to change them to become much more human in their attributes. We look at our common way of thinking and being and assess the virtue based on, well, where are we now? What does that mean now, patience? But in the divine sense of patience, we are connecting to greater time spans. In a certain way, we could say that patience leads us to working with the time spirits, those archai that govern these eons of time that allow humanity to take its steps and evolvement through the course of time. Now, when we're working with the spiritual year, we realize in some way that this circling of the spiritual year is bringing us into a way of understanding time that's not linear. It's not this point which is leading to a point in this sort of linear distance, but rather it's more like a vortex of development. And that vortex of development is useful to grasp, because often we find ourselves, as we're developing, that we seem to be coming back to similar issues, or we're re-meeting something that we've met before. And it can be very disappointing when you feel like, well, I thought I'd moved beyond that, or I thought I had done that one. And yet we find ourselves circling back to certain experiences, certain encounters, certain even revelations that we had but then have to be revealed again, because we stand at a new point in this vortex of our evolution, of our growth, this vortex of development. So when we consider that, and then we understand these greater time spans, we can also begin to understand how patience is not really a kind of biding time or a tolerance or a resigning myself to what is, but it's actually participating. It's participating in recognizing that this vortex of change is the way of which we move forward. It sometimes feels like we're actually going backwards when it's really on this vortex of transformation. We are moving forward. Like the great cosmic movements, the cycle of the planets, everything returns in the Platonic year back to the points again, but at a slightly different degree. And as we find ourselves working more with these cosmic pictures and less with these materialistic ones, we can begin to sense that even the virtues need to extend us to the cosmos and not make us so materialistic in our view. And this is difficult for us at this time, because this is difficult to actually take a cosmic view in a materialistic age. And that means really looking at how materialism affects the thinking to such a degree that we come back to this point of view as in the sense of time and space reality, and not a point of view that allows for a sort of larger cosmic view. Now, spiritual beings are working with that larger cosmic view, and it's also known that esotericists and initiates work with these larger cosmic views. There are certain things that are put into place now that are not for now, but may not unfold for lifetimes to come. And when we work with that larger cosmic view, we can begin to recognize something of what it may be like to work from a spiritual perspective of our lives. We get so caught up in the moment. And yet the aging process can, for some, start to loosen that recognition that actually all the events, just think of all these events that have occurred over time, that you could not fully understand why they were happening. But as you reach a new stage of life, you can look back and recognize, they have become something else. Not necessarily through how I worked with them at the time, but through what time has allowed them to become because of other events, other connecting points. And this is where we're heading. We're heading to a connection, a relatedness to things, to time, to space, that isn't about how we've been working with it to date. We've been working with a contrast. This is now, that was then, this is the present, that is the future, this is where I am, this is where you are. And we've, in a way, working in this realm of contrast, of duality, has been a way of thinking materialistically and has its usefulness at a certain point in time. But humanity as a whole is moving to this realm of the etheric, which brings us into a relatedness with things. And of course, the etheric is helping to change our relationship to time. And some of us feel that in different ways. I think many feel the speeding up of time that's occurring. It appears that actually in the sensory experience, time is quickening. But on other planes of experience, time seems to be widening or deepening. So we're trying to shift from a way of being to a way of becoming, which is related to what relationship? The relationship of time, rather than the experience of the linear space of time, which is in its dualized reality instead of its relatedness. And as we move to this relatedness, we will begin to understand how we can have the deepest patience for ourselves, for others, for the great task of evolving love. So then we ask, how does a deed of patience look in this idea of these greater time spans? We can think about that something like planting an oak tree and realizing it's not us that will see necessarily the fullness of that development, but we want to even take it even further than such a deed in the practical, but to recognize that what we are doing today there are deeds of love that live on. And it's these deeds of love in the light of patience that we know perhaps may not find their fruition in this coming week or month or year or even this lifetime. But deeds of love do indeed find their unfolding. And it's out of that gesture that we might find a deed that really relates us to greater time spans, so that we might engage with this virtue of patience. Now you may take time to do that, but each day when you've been able to work with that, even if you're applying that to your meditative practice, or you're applying that to an outer deed in relationship to something else, then you would follow the will stream, where you feel the attention on the top of the head pouring down the front of the face into the chest and into the heart. Have a wonderful month and allow yourself to consider eons of time.
Existence consumes the being, yet in being, existence is held. In activity, growth disappears. In becoming, activity pauses. In worlds that prevail and punish, in the chastening that shapes and forms, all being sustains the beings. And allow the words to work on in you, so that something is awoken within. And that can be a streaming from above down into the heart. And it can also be an experience of being.
Scorpio. Hello, here we are again for another eurythmy practice for the month and the month of Scorpio, which is going to bring our practice to patience, and patience will lead us towards an understanding. So last month I spoke about the rainbow colours as being the last of our day colours. So we have now gone through we've gone through 7 months, and we've taken the colours of the rainbow from the red all the way around to the purple. And if you remember, I held my veil up so that we could just imagine that we were on this side of the threshold about to step through. So now with these colours, it's the night colours, and this is our blue lilac, and we are stepping through to the spiritual world. Now these colours are, what could we say, they're not like a red or a yellow. They're diffused a little bit, and they sort of float into the air, you could say. So they have a softness, they have a delicate nature to them. But in saying that, it doesn't mean that they're weaker. It just means that we have to listen more and be more awake and more conscious, because now we have stepped through to the spiritual world. So this quality is what we need to bring to our Scorpio gesture for this month. And Scorpio for the human body, the formative force that comes in, is for the genitals. And you probably remember that when we were in Virgo, it was all about the abdomen and the womb, and the gesture was pointing inwards. And now we're with the genitals, and the gesture is pointing outwards. So even in that outwards gesture, because we think of the scorpion here, we have that sting, but we also have this higher thinking capacity that comes with the eagle. And so here to be able to listen, to be conscious, because this thinking is really this spiritual thinking that we're trying to connect to. So when we make this gesture, we want to imagine ourselves imbued in this colour, that maybe the whole space that we're in is this colour of the blue lilac, that we're really listening and forming this gesture from that capacity. So let's have a try. So we're going to stand very erect, very upright, with both arms just beside or pushed in a little bit, and then the left hand or arm is coming out to the left side and then releasing. And again. And releasing. Really trying to find this night colour spiritual quality in this gesture. And release. Now, you've seen me do it a few times, so can you now turn your screen a little so that you don't see me, and unless you really have to, and then practice again, because as you know from our work so far together, that if you're looking at the screen intently and at what I'm doing, you're not connecting with this inner space. And we really want to find what arises in us. Where can we find this patience, which can then lead us to an understanding? So let's do it 5 times today. And it doesn't matter if you end up doing it 3 or 10, but let's just have a practice. I'm not going to speak. Just turn the screen away or move yourself away from the screen, and I'll just speak again when I'm ready for our practice together. So, Scorpio. It's always good to have a little pause at the end to feel what resounds in the space. So, like each month, we will start with our ERO 3 times. Then we will do this new gesture of Scorpio 3 times. And then I'll speak you through the streaming. Scorpio, now the streaming from the cosmos through the crown chakra, down past the third eye, down to the larynx, the throat, moving on down further until we arise at that sacred mystery centre of the heart, where we will contemplate patience. Patience leading us towards an understanding.
I am the one who shines through.